Okay, we are now live. All right, let me see. We'll get this promoted everywhere. We had a little bit of a foray because we had to switch feeds, but there's always something with the first one. Why are we not live on your account, Rishabh? What is happening? What is happening? Well, Rishabh. Okay,
Max, when was the last time we were in person with one another? Was it on Bleecker Street or was
Was
it at the Broadway office?
It was at the Broadway office.
Yeah.
So I started after you had left MD, and then
Yeah.
I remember you came in, I think, for a meeting with Kevin, and
Yeah.
Steve called you over and was like, "Hey, you guys both had Lyme disease. You guys should meet."
Yeah. Love it.
Alexa says it's live.
Yeah, so I just dropped in the private chat the links, and then you'll get another link as well.
Cool.
But yeah, we are. Oh yeah, I love how LinkedIn does that. By the way, I don't know if you guys seen that, but when you go to the profile page, your cover turns into the video, which is very, very cool. I think LinkedIn nailed it. I've been sleeping on LinkedIn, candidly. I need to get a little bit crazier, but okay, are we ready to rock and roll?
Let's do it.
On you guys.
All right, folks. Thanks for joining us on the first seminar series brought to you by FERMÁT. We brought a bunch of killers in here, and then I don't know who the bottom right guy is, but the link must have got out. No, jokes aside, this is our fearless leader, co-founder, CEO, Rishabh, Max, and Daniel. Thank you for joining us. Before we get into how to scale a supplement brand, Daniel, let's start with you. Just give the people kind of the elevator pitch. Also, love the tortoise classes. Wasn't ready. But yeah, go ahead, kind of tell them what you do, why you're awesome, and then Max will go to you, Rishabh, and then we'll get into the meat of it.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for all of the shoes you have behind you. It's like I feel like there's probably like at least 80 stories behind you if we had time for it. Yeah, I run DTCo. We run growth for some of the best startups we all know. Our goal is to take over user acquisition for most brands. We run strategy, content performance, and analytics. Yeah, it's been a great year so far and got a lot of fun things happening, but we'll roll those out in just a little bit. Pass it over to Max.
I love it. And where are you located, Daniel? Sorry to cut you off.
I live in Frederick, Maryland. It's like an hour west of Baltimore.
Yeah, beautiful, the Northeast. Let's go, Mr. Max, our attendant, not attendant. What am I trying to say? We share a New York office with this wonderful human.
That's right.
Co-tenant, roommate, if you will.
Thank God for the cocktail that we went to. Was huge. I'm so glad I didn't cancel on y'all. So yeah, I'm Max. Similarly to Daniel, run a performance marketing shop. We basically, are hyper focused on acquisitions. We do three core things: media buying, creative in the form of both, UGC as well as post production, and then now we're starting to emphasize our focus on the post click experience in the form of landing pages. Outside of that, more to come there. Some big news happening there. But outside of that, I also serve as an advisor and lead up the acquisition team at Dose, which is I can't say how large it is because if the founder found out that I was saying that on a webinar, he would not be too pleased with me. But we are a fast-growing supplement brand, and so excited to chat. And thanks for having me on. And a little fun tidbit there is Daniel and I actually first jobs in DTC were at the same agency of Metric Digital. So shout out to Kevin Simonson.
Let's go. All roads lead to agency. And then we also have, you guys were kind enough to send us some product for a big South by Southwest event Wednesday, shameless plug. I forgot how nice those bottles are, man. Like proper glass, the packaging, the experience, like those liver shots are, they're going to play at South by Southwest. Okay. I've rambled enough. My boss, awesome human, wonderful guy, just a brilliant human. Rishabh, give people the elevator pitch and then we'll get into the show.
Totally. Yeah. So our company helps brands with the post-click experience. So for every ad that you run, trying to drive the right customized experience for the consumer after they click on the ad. And then we have a bunch of capabilities on the back end to increase conversion rate of that experience over time. So that's the quick on us, but candidly, the thing that I'm most excited about is learning together and sharing notes about what each of us has seen to grow supplement brands specifically, because I think there's a lot of unique characteristics in the supplement category that is unlike other brand categories. And so want to talk a little bit about the delta between those things and some of the unique aspects of how what we've all seen be most effective in driving growth for a supplement company. So Rama, do you want to kick us off, or I can kick us off with like a starter question?
Yeah, let's go. The age before beauty. Actually, I think I'm older. Damn it. It's beauty before age. I had the line all teed up and everything.
Oh my God.
Yeah, kick us off.
Okay. Amazing. Okay. So I guess the very first thing that I'll say is when you guys think about the business model and one of the things that I think unique about being a marketer today is like you're actually operating, you have to think about the full business. So the full business P&L, you can't just think about only the marketing dollars. But when you think about a supplement brand relative to other brands, what is the first thing that comes to mind to you in terms of the differences of the business dynamics for that brand relative to other brands, just so that we can sort of tee up the context for people who are listening to this?
Yeah, I mean, I can kick it off there. I think first and foremost, it's a consumable. It's probably one of the only categories that venture capital firms are still wanting to invest in because of the strength of the cohorts. So it doesn't necessitate that you have to be profitable on acquisition. And in a time where our CACs are continuing to rise, it alleviates a lot of the burden on performance marketing to a certain degree. So there's a lot to unpack there in its own right, but those are my kind of quick 2 cents on the subject. And naturally, with a subscription product category, you can really do some damage because you have this expected revenue coming through on a consistent basis. So, all within the same general theme, but those are my 2 cents there.
And piggyback on that, just general margin profiles generally healthier. So similar with the cohorts and the stacking revenue month over month with recurring customers, you get solid margins from it. It's why people are willing to invest in it still. And I would say from like, we'll get into ad creative and sort of emotional plays there, but just it talks to just an emotional problem that people perceive that they have or that they do have, and you can immediately talk to a solution. So the ability to just talk straight to people is pretty clear, where you're addressing something that they see in themselves or they've been told or what have you. And so creative can go in so many different directions at that point, but everything that Max said and then how creative can play on it.
What is it? Oh, sorry, Rama. Go for it.
No, I was just going to throw my little peanut gallery commentary in. I think one of the awesome parts about supplements is you have not only the robust economics that you all talked about, where it can give you a little bit more, rope to hang yourself with it, because you can kind of buy into the future a little bit because you have these heavy subscription angles, but more so to kind of what Daniel was talking about. I think people experience the world in stories, and there's very succinct stories that a lot of supplement brands can wrap themselves in, which really helps, again, as Daniel was saying, supercharge the creative and get people down the purchasing path faster.
Yeah, totally. One of the things I wanted to double click on, Daniel, you said like the margin profile is quite different. When you think about the margin profile and how it's going to impact your plans, outside of, I'm guessing one of the things you guys ask is like, hey, help us understand your margins today. What are some of the questions you ask a brand who is who's a supplement brand who's going to onboard with you? So like when you have your sort of like set of questions, like, hey, here's what I need to learn in order to most effectively scale your business, what are you asking them?
Focus on contribution margin, and then also discounts. I think not discounts as they fit into your margin profile, but where they fit on the P&L, just to understand how you're calculating them. because oftentimes with subscription businesses or supplement businesses, because of the high margin profile, you have a little bit more flexibility with the promotional strategy. And so basically, if you basically understand how much room you have to play with from MSRP minus what it costs to ship it out the door, minus what you're giving from a promotional strategy, you basically see what you have to work with for being profitable on first order. And then from there, you can basically balance out your efficacy on return orders to see how long it will take you to be profitable. And so again, a ton to unpack, but something where just like seeing how much room you have to work with to grow. Because once you see how much room you have to work with to grow, then you can start to put together the plan and what needs to happen in order to roll something out for somebody. But anyway, I'll pass over to Max any additional things he asks.
Yeah, it sounds very similar. It seems like y'all are probably more granular. Through the context of dose, I'll give a shout out to DrivePoint, who basically handles all of our financials as it relates to our thinking from a marketing perspective. If you haven't worked with them in the past, would definitely look for a demo there because they're amazing. Any questions that we do have as it relates to dose, they get us an answer, within a couple hours.
Mm-hmm.
Our standard protocols is basically trying to understand, the contribution margin from a variable cost perspective, a fixed cost perspective. Oftentimes what we have found is like even, personally at Hype 10, we'll come to a determination about where we need our CAC to be for a certain business. And then we won't revisit their fixed cost for a while. And that sometimes is a mistake because that's always changing in terms of the agencies that they're using or, tacking on additional team members, et cetera. So doing that on a consistent basis. The other thing I think is like having conversations during the onboarding process, semi-related to the finances, but like the acquisition offers that they have tested in the past and what they have found to be most effective. Daniel was talking about it as it relates to discounting because it's such a massive lever in terms of bolstering the subscription percentage that you're seeing on one-time purchasers, as well as kind of thinking about, okay, is that for recurring orders and first time, or is it just the first that we're going to get them in and then recurring it jumps up, right? There's so much that you can play with and how that relates back to, the back end finances. So, yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think like, I want to like fully explore this of like, what are the different discounting levers? What are the different offer levers? So why don't we do this next part just from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel? So, if you're running a subscription brand, now you guys know like what are some of the best operators thinking about? They want to know your margin profile. They want to understand what is the shipping cost out the door. Now let's dive into the funnel, top to bottom, and it starts with the creative. Oh, Rabba, go for it, man.
I just had one more because it's something that I think of a lot when I have subscription heavy brands. How do you guys think of the purchase cycle? Because I think one of the death knells to a subscription is when you don't have that really nice like monthly cycle where you miss that and you end up like, even if you love the brand, they just end up shipping it to you. And then you have this, huge amount of product and you're like, okay, cool. It's not that I don't fuck with the brand anymore. It's just like I have like, I'm a prepper now where I just have my whole cabinet is full of this brand. And I think that's something that, because it's outside of our purview, right? Because people are coming to you with the product. And I've had clients in the past where the product just wasn't sized in a way that was actually meaningful to be subscribed to because it was either at 3 months or if that makes sense. And so do you guys take that into consideration? Am I Looney Tunes for thinking of that? Like, and I'll start with you, Daniel, then I want to hear your take, Max, but I feel like purchase cycle is actually a pretty big function to a consumable.
Yeah. Well, from a number of perspectives, from our perspective, like it keeps the data clean. If it's 30 days, like the cohorts are clean, like that's much easier. I'm sure different strokes for different folks. Like depends on when you enter a relationship. So a lot of relationships that we run into, we actually get ahead of a go to market, and so that's a thing that we can ask people. We generally want to get people on monthlies just because it keeps the data clean. It's something that consumers get. You can manage it. Then it's, in how do I put it? Like some people try and retrofit a product to be consumed in 30 days, but it's actually not a 30-day product. And that's the other thing. And so I would say, for this sake, if we're talking about supplements, it's something that you usually take every day. There are a lot of scenarios out there where it shouldn't be taken every day, or you're not going to use it every day. And that's where you start to get like a backlog of things in your house that you don't want, and you're gonna cancel. So ideally, it's 30-day supplies, run out in 30 days, and everyday usable product, so that way it's seeped into it's in your daily life, and on the end marketer's perspective, it's easy to manage.
Yeah. I piggybacking off of a lot of that. I think one where I've worked with a lot of skincare brands in my day, and the subscription notion behind skincare, especially as it relates to guys, is like never quite works very well, because you always get this massive backlog, and you're looking to cancel that subscription as fast as possible. As it relates to supplements, as Daniel was talking about, like it's meant to be taken on a consistent basis. But it's important that all of your messaging is related to that, right? So, for dose, right, a lot of our ads are about our clinical studies, which is 8 weeks, right? So we kind of have that expectation of, you can start to see these results that we have studied and proven in this time period. And now all of our messaging is about consistency of use, and that's how you're actually going to get this desired impact. And I think there's also a natural expectation and understanding there, but the habit is new, right? And so naturally, you're going to have a small percentage of those people that are subscribing that aren't going to adopt into that. And really what that comes down to is just like messaging consistently, that the consumer should be consistently taking this product. But it also starts with that first touch point in the ads as well. If you are, it's funny because we were just having a conversation internally about this, but we're trying to figure out a way to understand our cohorts based off of the value propositions that we are pushing in ads. To understand if value proposition 1, 2, 3, or 4, which are all related to like the actual outcomes that can have, how does that actually impact the strength of the cohort? It's very hard to properly measure, because as we well know, somebody can see an ad like 8 different times. But now I'm getting off topic here.
No,
I'll pass it to you, Rishabh.
no, dude, this is exactly right. Like let's talk about the creative testing in the top of funnel for a supplement. And in the greatest irony of venture capital, which VC is just full of irony, undifferentiated product, telling founders to be differentiated, sell painkillers, not vitamins, but only investing in supplements, whatever. All of the greatest ironies in the world. What are some of the hooks that you guys think about, or what does the creative need to do in order to attract the consumer?
A lot to unpack there. Daniel, I'm going to pass that to you first.
What we do is we define audiences first. The classic is calling it a customer profile. We prefer not to call it that, but we call it content pillars. And so content pillars can mean a number of things, but like for one example, when we did go to market with Armra, one of Armra's core audiences was a fitness audience. And it's like, that's what we started with. And if you go and you look at the creative now, you'll see that the pillars have expanded from fitness to gut to skin to hair. And so it's really understanding like what pain points are you going to speak to, and how, and just like from a very conceptual standpoint, so that when you go to build creative, you actually know what you're trying to, the pain points that you're trying to actually communicate. Because when we get to post-click, there's an on-site experience that you're going to want to have reverb that back to them and go for them to go deeper into. And so that's generally the first point. So hooks, the first thing I would say is not a hook. It's more, what are you telling the algorithm about? I'll talk about the algorithm in this ethereal way, but what are you actually telling the algorithm about your audience that you're trying to attract? Because that fitness audience is going to be different than that gut audience. And so are you letting the algorithm know who that person is and what you're trying to say to them? And then the hooks are about the engagement rate within, or the thumb stop rates within that audience. So and then once you get into it, there's I don't know, an innumerable number of hooks that you can get into, but I'll start with the audience side of it.
Cool. Yeah, I think like we have a process, maybe less audience focused, about things from a problem aware and problem unaware camp. And the problem aware camp is easy, probably for the first year or two of the life cycle of a supplement. I mean, Armra was revolutionary from kind of being the first well-known colostrum brand, to my knowledge, right? So there was a lot of education that was required about the benefits of that particular SKU or that product category. But for, as it relates to dose, it was very kind of clear cut in terms of our messaging angle and who we were trying to get after. But now as we're trying to kind of expand our TAM and it's naturally growing, right, we're finding kind of these secondary value propositions that actually, hold weight as well in terms of what we've studied about the actual products that we're pushing. So we basically leverage kind of one of two things there. Post-purchase surveys have been huge for us. If you ever want to check out some great options, go ahead and purchase from us, and there are some great questions there. Purchase from us, see them. So those are always selling. So
First shameless plug of the pod. Love to see it.
So we're trying to understand why somebody's buying exactly in that moment, right? And not just like from an attribution perspective, which I think a lot of people, they either use Fairing or No Commerce, and kind of just ask that question about like, where did you first hear about us? And that's helpful to a certain degree, but we all kind of know it's either going to be Instagram or Facebook for 85% of people there. So leveraging it in a way, it's like, what is the desired end result that you're seeking from taking this product, right? And then now we can leverage that information and kind of track against like, how does that compare and contrast to what we're actually pushing, number one. And then number two is like, we didn't really think that this was big for us, but it's actually 25% of people are, talking about this value proposition being huge, or the primary reason why they decided to buy from us. So that's been helpful. And then just spending hours looking at ad comments. It's a monotonous process, but it's so valuable to just sit there and read, especially at scale. If you're a small brand, you're going to get that pretty quickly in terms of leveraging that resource because there's not that many comments that are going to come through. But if you're spending, as aggressively as we are on some of the supplement brands that we work with, there's a lot of information that you can get there. One of which we didn't think was all that important was most content creators out there that you work with are females. And it's hard to find good guy creators. And so we kept getting comments from guys being like, why don't you advertise to guys, or like, can guys take it, etc. And actually on the back end for, our performance, it's actually 50-50 split. But since we didn't feature any guys in our ads, Meta was spending way more aggressively towards females. Because, they're scanning that particular, video in question and see that the interaction rate is slightly higher. And so they're naturally going to go ahead and serve a little bit more aggressively to that cohort. So now we've started to actually ramp that up, in terms of actually featuring guys as an example. I'll stop there.
That's super interesting. What do you guys think about when it comes to like after that initial sort of like value proposition or audience build, when you think about the sort of like deeper funnel questions? So it's like, hey, here's the thing that I know that people are looking for as value out of this supplement. When you think about either offer types or discounting, or like when they move from sort of aware, like problem aware to consideration, I guess I would call it, what are the sets of things that you're trying to do in that consideration phase of the consumer, right? So whether it comes to offer or it comes to education, I'm going to put this, like, do people actually care? Am I going to put this in my body and I need to know that it's safe? Or are most people kind of like, it's probably fine. You know what I mean? Like in the consideration phase, what are the sets of things that you think about as you move people through the funnel?
To me, it's reaffirming the solution side of it, like problem aware, problem unaware, like what is the solve to it? I'm gonna go off topic from a supplement business real quick, but we worked with Curology for a little while, and they had a whole their strategy was there was a hook, and then it was a testimonial, and that strategy was it was everything. And the testimonial was not just a testimonial; it was here's how I use this, and here's how this helps my skin. And so whenever they would give briefs to people, it was pretty simple. And so the hook was designed for the algorithm and for a user's eyes to get them to stop. But the moment that they had their attention, they were talking about how it was a solution. It wasn't about, because the hook looked like a problem. Like it was like, what
Got
is
it.
this jarring image that gets you to pay attention, that you can see this problem, and then everything after that is how it works, what the solution is. And so I think if you, in both scenarios, whether you're aware or unaware, to use Max's language, people want to know that it's going to work, or they at least want to have faith that it can work, or they want to test it. And what enables them to get over the hump, or that consideration, is very different by person. Sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's efficacy, sometimes it's cost. Oftentimes when you're at low levels of spend, it's straightforward. They don't necessarily need a cost benefit to try it, because the less that you spend, the more in market your audience is. But similar to what Max was saying, like the more that you spend, the further out you go from your in market audience. You're actually going to start tapping into a more price conscious consumer, because if they were in market, they don't need a reason to buy that's purchase driven, because they're in market. So as they go, if you go out further, you're going to need to give them a reason. And more often than not, people won't try things unless they are constantly reinforced, or the problem comes up after they were already aware, or two, you tell them that, hey, there isn't, you don't have much to lose here from a cost perspective, because we're going to give you a benefit. So I think those are two areas where they can start to fork, and where you can address them differently depending on what scale you are.
So I have a naive question. Most supplements that I take, I'm in the category of people who take supplements, but most supplements that I take, I'm vegetarian. There's a lot of reasons why. I'm vegetarian, I'm a believer, lots of reasons. But most people who take it, it's like, hey, you're going to see the outcome in 60 days or in 3 months. And so it requires investment from the person outside of the purchase. It requires them to actually consume for a long time before they see those outcomes. And usually that's somewhere in the funnel that they become aware of that like outcome or how it benefits them. How do you guys think about like whether or not that is sufficient for the consumer? Well, I'm not a good case study, because I'm like, sure, if it works in 2 months, that's great. But I'm sure there are people who are like, what about the one that works in a week? Or are people not like that? How do you guys think about getting somebody to commit, I guess, or making them feel comfortable with the commitment?
It depends on the severity of the issue that you're trying to solve for. There are products out there that bloating can be resolved, as an example, in a span of like a week, and usually if the product in question is, showing signals that you can feel that quickly, you have a customer for a while. And the more complex the issue that you're trying to solve as a supplement brand, that's, to a certain degree, the tougher it's going to be to get that buy-in and that longevity of the consistent use, I would say. But there are going to be signals, right? There's also a natural placebo effect that's going to happen. I'm not a big lifter, but if I go to the gym 2 or 3 times, I think that I look bigger, I have committed to this desired outcome, even just for a short period of time. And I'm going to tell myself that I feel better. And naturally, that's not going to be in our messaging angles, but it's the truth. It's just kind of, human psychology there.
Do you guys use any type of like email cadence or SMS cadence to bolster this and or fold it into community? Like because sometimes community can be really useful in this sense of like, hey, you just got to keep chugging. I did this for 30 days. You're only on your 10th day. Keep going. Or dripping a cadence in terms of it, whether it's email or SMS, to not only increase the consumption of like, hey, are you taking it, blah, 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 but also just keep the vibes high, if that makes sense, where you keep people bought in. Because sometimes when you are in that supplement journey and you are either trying to acquire something or trying to mitigate something, it can feel a little lonely. And some, like, it sounds terrible, but like sometimes misery loves company, and like just putting people in that same place and understanding like, hey, Billy was here or Susie was here. You're not alone. You just need to keep hammering. Is that kind of at all what you guys think about? Or is it just kind of more really focused on the acquisition side?
If you don't feel something within the first 30 days, I wouldn't look to solve for it with community. I would look to solve for it from upfront merchandising. Because if you have a product that is on a 30-day cycle and someone's not feeling it by 30 days, like they're going to churn. They're not even going to get to experience it. And so to me, what you would want to do is, to your earlier question, like set the product experience up or the refill experience up so that they know what they're getting into from the beginning. So if it's going to be 60 days, if it's 45, 60, 90, whatever it is, you tell them that. And then maybe your recurring is a 30-day or something like that. So when you were talking, I was thinking like it's more about the ad comments. And in my experience, like if the ad comments are good, like that's your community. People, and I know the communities exist in many places for certain things, but if you're talking about what we're doing, positive sentiment in your ad comments will run, negative comments will tank you. And so to me, that's really where people are looking, is they're interested in something, they're going to see, is this something worth going deeper into or not? And that's where the community aspect plays a role in what we do more immediately.
No, I want to get your take on this, Max, but I just have to comment on the comments that Daniel brought up. Do you guys ever sauce a little bit of retargeting? So I have some supplement buddies that run supplement brands, and the best thing that can happen is a negative comment, and then there's just this deluge of evangelists that's basically refuting all of that. And so it's just this perfect symbiotic, like, hey, here's an objection, and here's a bunch of people that have purchased with objections. So because I think you're spot on, you guys, with the comments are absolute gold. And I've never thought of it as like a quasi community, Daniel, but I guess when they're running that retargeting, it is a quasi community because you've already purchased and you're seeing it, but you're also bringing new people into the fold.
Yeah, I don't think it necessitates actually throwing it in. Oh, sorry, Daniel. Necessitates like throwing it into retargeting on a post edit or anything like that, or into retention efforts. It's naturally going to happen just in a post iOS environment. So like we exclude all past buyers, but you're going to get that leakage, and hopefully within that leakage you get that positive affirmation from past buyers. We had worked like two things, and then would love to hear, Daniel, if you're thinking the same way from a comment perspective. But we had worked with a creator I sent him 2 months why, and he had all of these health issues that he was contending with, and then started to take the product. And so when we launched his ads, he actually jumped in from his personal account, was like, this is me, and like, let me tell you my experience, right? Mm-hmm. And like how great he loved the product, like how it solved issues that he's been going to the doctors for years on end, so on and so forth. So it's like, I agree with everything Daniel's saying in terms of that volition of the product itself from users is going to be paramount. We also actually, like, our head of community at Dose is somebody that had elevated liver enzyme levels, went to the doctor, had all these other health issues at play, started taking Dose because she found it online and was just like, this is amazing. Like, I want to work with you guys. Right. And so she'll like talk to, existing subscribers about her personal experience, et cetera. It's not all that scalable. It's not like we have, a Facebook group or anything from a community standpoint, but we're trying to make these one-off conversations happen with somebody that's been through exactly what they're going through and has seen the positive outcomes of, consistently taking the product.
Yeah. Super well said.
I have to ask, you guys have been talking about different merchandising and subscription rates. So how do you think about, what frameworks do you use to think about the initial offer? Is it default subscribe? Is it hit them with the subscribe later? Is it an initial 3-month package to get them into the habit? How do you think about habit forming? Yeah, just what is the frameworks you guys use for what is the right acquisition point in order to get somebody to see the benefits and be a long-term subscriber? And yeah, Daniel, would love to kick it back to you.
Sure. Definitely want people to subscribe up front, because you effectively want to you basically want to train the algorithm to go find the right people. That's number one. We talk about acquisition. We're talking about meta. So just
Totally.
Yeah. TikTok can work the same way, but we can get to that another time. Same with YouTube, and Google's its own beast. But you want to start with a subscription offer, and then similar to what we were talking about first, like what's your MSRP? How much contribution do you have? What are you willing to give away on the discount? Interestingly enough, like Armra for the first year and a half, I don't even think had a promo offer on any of their products. And it's because there was a level of virality and things that were going on, but they didn't need to roll out a promotional offer to incentivize new people. But as they reached a certain level of scale, it was, well, what tools do we have in our tool belt to figure out this new problem? Because we're growing at a rate that the marginal returns on where we're growing to are getting tougher. And so, well, if we give away X% on the first offer, does that improve click-through rate? And improve click-through rates improve your CPC? And does that improve our conversion rate? And it's like, well, at that rate, are we improving conversion rate enough that CAC is dropping so much that the quality of customer is good enough, that our month one repeat rate is good enough? And so you can see there's this domino effect of how what you want to do starts. I would say I kind of view it from two lenses. For newer brands, it's a little bit of a hyperbolic thing to say, but I say if you gave this thing away for free, would somebody buy it, or would somebody take it? And so oftentimes when businesses go to market, not everybody is going to have a level of virality like Armor got to. And so the question is, like, are you able to sell this product with a promotional offer? Because if you're not, if the answer is we're trying to sell this thing for a 50% off offer and people are still not buying it, is it the price and the promotional offer? Is it the creative? Is it the actual product? What is it? And so there's a number of problems that you're trying to solve when you think about the initial promotional strategy. But let's say the product sells. Generally, in my experience, if I were to drop any nugget to anybody, 30% off is the highest you can go before you tip the algorithm. If you go above 30%, you'll tip the algorithm to start targeting promo users. And it's not that's not written in a book somewhere. I've spent a lot of money on ads and I've tested in 5% increments, probably across 50 plus brands, a lot of money. And 30% is the tipping point for strong month one retention. And so if you go above that, your month one retention will decrease if you stay below that. So to me, that's a little bit of the sweet spot of how you keep it. However, that doesn't mean that we immediately go there. It's a matter of do you even need to get there? And so that's where you roll these things out one by one.
Well, Daniel, that was a popular one. We're getting the comments in. We have 2 questions, but I'll hold them to about 10 minutes left, and then we'll go through the questions. Max, did you have anything else to elaborate on? I love that 30%. There is nothing worse than I'm old, so I don't know if you guys remember, but do you remember Groupon? Andrew Mason, who's doing very well. He started, I forget what his new thing he started, but that was the exact issue that every single business ran into, where you were just finding these price hawkers that had no intention of actually buying your product. They just were like deal hunters, and those are the worst people to sell to, unless you're like a Wish.com or a Temu. And Wish.com I lost so much money on, but that's not here nor there. But that's a really good tidbit.
there are brands out there that still operate like that, and they're highly successful actually on Meta. They're basically not recurring. They're not built on recurring revenue.
It's a drop shipper model for
they're built
lack
on
of a better term.
upsells. They're built on basically a program. So it's basically like buy into this 6-month program, and this is part of it. So you, instead of getting hooked on like a $50 AOV on the start, they hook you in on a $300 AOV to start, but they've upsold this big program, and it's a different world of supplement than we're talking about, a different purchaser, a different model, but it is one that is candidly almost as big enough to be reckoned with. It's just part of it. It targets a part of the country that is probably not in the target demo of the brands that we're talking about right now. So a different model to explore.
Super fair. Max, any other commentary?
Yeah, I would say, like, there are definitely some CRO tactics that go into play. Rishabh, you had referenced, auto toggling subscription. You can do something along the lines of like, the recurring aspect of things. Like, I don't know, you can just have call outs there as it relates to acquisition offers. But the intriguing part about a supplement brand is the reliance on the cohort maturity. And so it can be kind of a drag, because for a standard acquisition, let's call it like t-shirts, I can run an acquisition offer, I can test it, and I can know pretty quickly the impact that it's having on kind of the full aspect of the business, right? For the most part. And as it relates, in subscription and recurring revenue is such a big aspect as it relates to supplement brands, you have to wait for that test to mature for a while to actually have 100% confidence in it. Because naturally, if I go from a 10% off my subscription to 20%, it's going to improve acquisition. But how is that going to impact, the cohorts as they mature, right? To Daniel's point, right? That 30% threshold, in terms of, that's when you start to see diminishing returns because you've gone too far down the discount rabbit hole. So yeah, I mean, aside from that, I'm definitely against not giving people the option to purchase once. I think, subscription only landing pages is, not great from a branding perspective, personally. I just don't want people to be confused by that purchasing, kind of forcing them through that funnel. So I think giving people the option there. The other element here as well is like price testing. A lot of brands just don't, do a classic price test frequently enough, in my opinion. And you can still get that, increase your price and figure out kind of on a 3-way test to see actually if you're seeing diminishment in terms of conversion rates by doing that. And then you can start to tinker with that percentage off on subscription even more than you originally expected, because you've now won, 10% margin by increasing your price. There's a bunch of different stuff that you can do there.
Robot, do I have time for one more question?
Yes, you do.
Okay. So one of the things that I've gotten really curious about is, I feel like a lot of people are attracted to building supplement companies right now. The economics are really good. Retention rates can be really good. When you guys think about like scaling outside of just the pure business side of it, of like, hey, I want it to be profitable and grow, do you guys think about just, I want this to win the market? So it's like, let's just say Armra Colostrum, right? As an example. How much do you think about actually my acquisition strategy is like, yes, to grow it, but also to make it synonymous. So when people think colostrum, they think Armra first and then everybody else second. Or when people think liver, they think dose first, then everybody else is just like super far behind. When you guys think about like scaling a supplement brand, just given the competitive dynamics, how much do you think about like, guys, like, we need to win the market, and here's how I think about winning the market? Or is that not a primary order question right now?
I would say from where we sit, it's the language that we can use, but I would say it's probably a little bit preliminary from what it actually means. Just like when you like, we focus on direct consumer, and if direct consumer is your only channel, like, yes, you can do really well in a market and capture a lot of a market, but don't necessarily own the market because there's so many other categories. There's so many other brands out there that have a large share of voice that we might not see because we live on the computer. But there are a lot of people in the country that see those brands. And so I would say the language is used, but it's probably a little bit preliminary. And when you're talking about it at these levels of scale, the second thing that I would add is it's interesting when people cross categories. So, for example, like Armor, for example, is it's cross category. They punch with a lot of different brands in a lot of different categories. And so when you think about where they could go, it's sort of hard to put a ceiling on it, or it's hard to say like, well, where could it go next? And that's also one of the cool things about it is, and why it went viral, is there are so many benefits to it. So
Yeah.
those are two nuances that I would add into it, but it's generally not language we would use on a regular basis.
And just to interject there as well, the unboxing experience is really top floor as well. Like the product, the unboxing. We did one for D2C Hunter and Armra. It doesn't feel. I think sometimes you get a supplement brand that feels kind of drop shippy, where it's just like they're just sending this to you. Armra, it feels like a premium product and an experience. Like people care. The people that put this together care about it, and like, not that cost wasn't important, but like it cost is like secondary. It feels like it was like we wanted to get you the best supplement and make it a really cool experience. And so I just wanted to point that out as well, because I was really impressed with that. Max, take us home. Land the plane, baby.
Sorry, I got a little sidetracked there because I was going to ask you, how was the dose unboxing experience for you?
Oh, spectacular. The dose is gorgeous, but remember the dose, you sent me the big bulk one. I already pumped the dose up. I told you the product was beautiful. The product was beautiful.
I got my head. Sorry. In terms of what was the original question here? Sorry, Rishabh.
Oh, I was just wondering, when do you guys think about category winning? And the reason, by the way, I should have added the context. The reason I'm asking is a totally different brand, not in the supplement space. It's in the device space. The marketer there is thinking a lot about owning the category as one of the ways to continue to grow the brand. And I'm just wondering how you guys, supplements is also highly competitive. So how much you think about that?
I think if you had asked the founder and CEO of Armra and the founder and CEO of Dose, they are definitely thinking about it.
100%. Sure.
Way more than we are. It comes up in conversation, but I think an element of it is just trying to move fast and grow fast, and become synonymous, like, some brands have in the past, right? Like Band-Aid was the original, actual brand, right? As an example,
or
right?
like AG1 has done this basically, exactly. Right? That's what I'm thinking about. Yeah.
So like you think of any other greens drink, it's like, oh, they're copying AG1, right? And so I think there's an element of it. I don't know if it changes our decision making, ultimately. We still want to continue to just grow fast, and that's a bit of a byproduct of our growth.
Oh,
makes a ton of sense.
I love that. We have a couple questions in the chat, so let's do that. If you guys are live watching, either on YouTube or LinkedIn, drop your questions in there. The first one's from the YouTube channel. This is from Influence Lee. Regarding testimonials, tons of variables to get right here. What are your top tips to land on an impactful testimonial? Max, we'll start with you, and then Daniel will go with you next.
Yeah, I think it could be one of two things. Would probably leverage email. For some brands and an older demo, it can be tough to get testimonials, as an example, regardless of the product category. So I'd probably just leverage email and try to basically focus your email efforts on the review aggregation in a form, or like in a segment of people that as a VIP customer, and incentivize them and say like, you can get 15% off your next order, 20% off your next order. There's ways in which you can do that. And how are you going to get the most impactful reviews? It's, hopefully it's genuine and the product is actually having that particular reaction from the customer, and it comes through as authentic in terms of the value propositions that they're actually seeing in their day-to-day life, it comes back to the product and the product having efficacy in terms of actually getting the desired result.
Yeah, well said, Daniel.
Generally just having like a bullpen of influencers who what you're going to get when you send stuff to them, and hopefully by category what stuff they're into, so that you can say like, hey, if I send you this this clothing, that they're an active person that's always trying to like figure something new out, or if there's someone that's into health, are they always into that health thing, and so they are excited about getting the product themselves. And maybe the testimonials are different. There's like buying influencer testimonials, and then there's getting testimonials from your existing base. And in both, if they're your existing base, that they're into the product, you probably have to worry about their ability to film something good enough. But if you're buying it, you generally want to toe the line.
One thing that we're doing now is we hired a videographer, and then we're emailing long-standing clients or customers to basically get together to shoot with them about their actual personal testimonial.
I love that.
I read that originally as reviews, so sorry if that first response didn't make any sense. Anywho.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic stuff. The only other thing that I would add is, in kind of what you were running into there, Max, is that if you can get a breadth of different people, where it's men, women, different diversities, things of that nature, because there's a certain aspect of when I see somebody like me, I just naturally am mimetic, right? Where it's just like, oh, that looks like me, so it'll probably work for me. So that would be the only other kind of tidbit I would add, but that's absolute heat, guys. Influence Lead, thank you for joining the live stream and putting in the question. All right, we actually have the call is coming from inside the house. How evergreen are the learnings about your audience / what resonates versus trend driven? This is from our product connoisseur, Abe Clark. We'll switch it up this time. We'll start with you, Daniel, and then we'll go to you, Max.
All right. To me, it often depends. I'll couch it and say, if Meta is your core acquisition channel, those evergreen learnings are often about what size you're at. So your audience at a lower scale is going to tell you about your very in-market audience. As you scale up further, it's going to tell you about your mid-market, in-market audience. As you go up further, it's going to be your mid-market, out-of-market audience, and then it's going to be your out-of-market audience. And so as you keep scaling, there's just different audiences that you're going to find. And so I would say they're evergreen, but they tell you about different cohorts of people of different times of running the company. So if you're to be like, man, I hear this a lot. Oh, our customers that we got when we first launched, they're still subscribed, they're so loyal. And it's like, that makes a ton of sense, because they were the most in-market people that never needed to be told why to buy your company. And it'd be like, well, why is our retention so awful when we've reached this scale, or why is it deteriorating a little bit? It's like, well, we've grown to a point that we are targeting people that don't really, they need a lot of reasons to try this, which is why people see inflated CACs and retention drop at certain levels of scale. And so that's where I would say it is evergreen, but it's more about memorializing those learnings about the different phases of the company and what phases of the company that really tells you about.
Yeah, that's so well said. It's almost like concentric circles, right? Where you have your core audience. Because the other thing is you start to bump up against economics where you're having to buy worse customers at higher rates because they're just so far from that core consumer that you bump into some of those things as well. That's so well put, Daniel. Not just a pretty face and great tattoo ink. Did you have something else? You said you had some. No, perfect.
No,
yeah,
good.
Incredible answer. Max, anything else?
No, I think he hit the nail on the head. I similarly, when you talk to brands, they often have preconceived notions about what works best for them, and they kind of have a hard time deterring their focus from that origination of that thought. So oftentimes in our space, people think that like video content is going to work best, and it has to be this style of video content from this style of creator or what have you. And they just haven't tested enough outside of that core principle that they've mastered. So I think it's a consistent process and never kind of having a conclusion about what's going to be best for your business as it relates to like messaging angles and, trend driven, et cetera, or just like style aesthetically, like that's always changing. Right. So never be afraid to kind of jump on one of those new trends that's unfolding on TikTok. You can make it work for your brand regardless of what product category you're pushing. Just always be testing.
ABT, baby. Always be testing. Rishabh, anything else to add before we close it out?
No, this was incredible, guys. I mean, so many strong points at every point of the funnel, uniqueness about supplement brands. Thank you everybody who was able to actually join live, and thank you Max and Daniel for joining us. This is awesome, guys.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys.
That was fun.
Yeah, we'll be doing we'll post this tomorrow post talk. We'll polish it up a little bit. So let's wrap it up. Daniel, how can the people get more involved, follow you? Are you guys taking any more clients? This time's yours, my friend.
Yeah. We're taking, I could talk about DTCo till next week straight if you wanted to. Our website is DTCo.digital. My name on LinkedIn is how you can find us. And yeah, we're growing. I think most agencies saw 2023 be a little bit of a slow year. And 2024, if you were growing the right way, is bouncing back really nicely. So we're ready to roll, and really excited about what we have going on this year, and we'll have more to share in the upcoming weeks.
Amazing. Well, thank you for joining us. Go find Daniel on LinkedIn. Go hit up DTCo. Get the best agency access on the planet. Max.
Second best agency on the planet. We gotta.
So good.
Love to see it.
Keep that up for you.
So good.
So yeah, I'm on Twitter. You can find me at I think it's Max Langlois 3 or something along those lines. I'm not particularly active on LinkedIn, so if you're following me there, don't expect much. Our URL's hype10agency.com. So if you want to fill out a lead form and continue to chat, happy to do so.
Amazing. Rishabh, what do you got for the people? And then I'll wrap this up.
Dude, I got nothing. Come here for the education, stay for rubasms,
Let's go.
That's all I got.
Yeah,
I'm here to learn just like everybody else,
Well,
I'm just hoping to ask some reasonable questions so that way we can all learn together.
No, this has been great, guys. I really it's really awesome just to talk to top tier operators. So many nuggets here. If you also want to check out FERMATcommerce.com, we have all the awesome sauce over there. We also have a wonderful newsletter that goes out every week called The Geometry of Growth. And then we have a couple sister shows with the DTC Hunter, where I get to light up the Rampy and do some unboxing experiences from the pre-purchase all the way to the post-purchase. And then we have the Equation of Excellence. So go check us out on all the channels there. And then, that's it. We'll be doing these every Monday. And so, Daniel, Max, thank you for kicking off the inaugural seminar series. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time out today. It was really wonderful just to see the big brains open up and you guys just drop knowledge bombs everywhere. So appreciate y'all.
Yeah. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate y'all.
That's it.
Take
Thanks,
care.
everybody. Bye.
Bye, y'all.